Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Absolute Batman issue 23, written by Scott Snyder, with art by Nick Dragotta, colors by Frank Martin, and letters by Tom Napolitano. Bruce reaches his breaking point this issue as out in Gotham, Alfred meets with his daughter Julia, thanking her for meeting her since he wasn't sure she would. Julia couldn't turn down a cup of Amir's finest tea, finding it nice to see her father again, and she's wanting to do it again unless he's planning on leaving, that is. Alfred reveals that he's actually staying in town indefinitely, but he's just got to go to London to inform his bosses that he is giving up his work. Alfred and Julia finally having a moment of connection feels like a long time coming, and something we've been circling since the early issues of the series. Julia asks what's got him so interested in staying in Gotham, and Alfred reveals that he's been working with a young man that reminds him a lot of himself and why he got into this line of work. Recently, the man has lost his way and he needs to help him. Julia, of course, rightfully calls her father out, quite pissed off that he wants to stay in town to help some random guy rather than be with his own daughter. But Alfred knows he's not been the best father, but he knows two things to be true. First, he spent his life in service for his country, and two, he did it to keep her and her mother safe. Julia is a little sick of the same old line, knowing that over the years she's learned a couple of truths of her own, getting ready to tell her father them. I really do love Julia calling Alfred out on this, since yeah, what the hell, man? Help your daughter, not just some random dude you only met recently. You can see where Alfred sees a lot of himself in Bruce, since both are so single-minded in their mission to, in Bruce's case, to stop Jack Grimm, or in Alfred's case, he works for the betterment of his country. So you can see where Alfred is coming from, where he sees where Bruce is going and doesn't want him to make the same mistakes he did when he was Bruce's age. So I understand why Alfred is helping him, but at the same time, it's like, man, just be with your daughter, just be with her a little bit more. You can do that. Elsewhere, Dick asks the Robins if they want to go and grab some food, but Tim is more interested in the Robin rankings, showing Dick that Gotham is voting on its favorite Robin, something Dick doesn't like since it's not what they signed up for. This is what I was talking about in my review of the last issue. These Robins don't have that family aspect to them that Batman usually brings to them, so it's all corporate, competition-orientated work for them, and no doubt that's the point, as Jack wants them to be competitive to weed out weaklings and to keep them from teaming up together against him. Dick finds that he is in last place in the rankings, and Tim makes fun of him for it, knowing all of them have something to love, and maybe Dick will find his one thing one day. Dick doesn't want this stuff to become a distraction, finding Jason is suiting back up to go back out on patrol to catch Batman. Steph doesn't want to go with him, so Jason asks Tim, who knows that they can't let Jason go out alone since the Robins are a team. Dick tries to implore the team that their mission is more than just hunting Batman. They are there to make Gotham a better place, but Jason believes removing the Batman from the equation will make it better, storming off to go and find the Dark Knight. Batman being a big point of contention for the Robins is great. It's a great use of that symbol Bruce doesn't really want to be, but he has become in Gotham, where to many it means it's like a symbol of hope. It's a symbol that things are changing, but then to other people like Jason, it's a symbol of oppressiveness, and he wants to try and end that. It's beginning to pull the Robins apart thanks to Jason's intense desire to kill Batman for what he's done, and Dick trying to keep everything stable and remind them that they are meant to be better than Batman is just fantastic. I've no doubt that Jack and the Straw Man and Slade Wilson are manipulating the group and keeping them at odds with one another, but it really is fun seeing how when they don't have Batman being that grounding rod for them and being that thing that kind of brings them together as a family, not just as Robins, just how miserable and different they are as characters. Julia, meanwhile, tells her father that the first truth she found out was that powerful people that Alfred works for are all just phantom enemies, since despite his decades of supposedly keeping the world safe for them, nothing is actually better. In fact, it's worse. Barbara Gordon, meanwhile, meets with Harvey Bullock, who's come round to her place with some fresh flowers for her, hoping there is anything real he can do for her besides useless gestures like giving her flowers. Barbara asks if he could put some more detectives on her father's case, but Harvey knows it's pretty open and shut. Batman killed Jim Gordon, but Barbara doesn't believe that, asking as Harvey's goddaughter for him to look into it a little bit more. Harvey's hands are tied and he implies heavily that he cannot and will not look into the case anymore. Barbara is done with Harvey then, telling him to leave since she doesn't have time for empty gestures. So I guess this is the event that kind of sparks her to really push herself to become Batgirl. The legitimate channels aren't working for her. She's tried to go through the police and tried to go through her friends to help find out what happened to her father, and none of it's working. So it's going to force her to turn to the mask to get her own answers. I think it's a fantastic way to bring Batgirl into this universe. I'm intrigued to see what her special one-shot that's coming up is going to be like and how that ends up deepening the mystery surrounding Jim's death. Harley, meanwhile, designs a new mallet after Batman broke her last one, telling one of her gang members that the Red Hood gang are done with Batman and they are moving on. Alfred, meanwhile, wants to know what the second truth Julia learned, so the woman tells him that when they take a swing at phantoms, they often hit the people closest to them. She pays for the tea, hoping her father has a good trip and finds out what he is looking for. As deep underground, Bruce continues to try and connect the dots to the Straw Man and Jack Grimm as his friends come by. Waylon tells him that they couldn't stay away since they are all family and they are there to help, but Bruce doesn't care since they don't understand anything about what is actually going on. Riddler knows about Scarecrow and how he's got Bruce believing that his life is the center of some giant plot called the Batman Project, and they can help him look into it and debunk it. Bruce snaps at them again, not wanting their help, but his friends refuse to leave, so Bruce decides if that's the game they want to play, then he'll play, asking Oswald about Griebling Shipping, one of the trucking companies he uses for his smuggling business, and one run by Otto Griebling, which is also the name of a famous clown and is a shell of JK Industries, Jack Grimm's business. Oswald tells Bruce that he uses 24 trucking companies, so how is he meant to know which one is a shell company and what isn't? Riddler thinks it's just a coincidence, but Bruce goes in on him too, knowing the company that sponsors him and makes the Weetouch processing chips is named after Charles Adrian Weetouch, yet another famous clown, meaning it too is a shell for Jack Grimm. I really love just how filled with paranoia Bruce has gotten thanks to the Straw Man's influence. He's seeing Jack Grimm everywhere, and the thing is, he's kind of 100% right. Jack Grimm is embedded in everything in this world, but also maybe he isn't, and that's the thing I love about this version of the Joker when we got his origin story in the Arkham special, where you never knew what was actually real about the Joker and what was just urban myth and things people have built up over the years to make him seem a bit more than what he actually is. And I like that it's kind of playing both ways, where it's all true, but it's also all fake. And I love that Bruce doesn't know that, and it's just making him even more paranoid than ever. Then you have the Straw Man feeding into that and feeding him all of this stuff, like maybe his father is alive, the whole Batman Project stuff. It's so great. It's just kind of gaslighting him into believing all of this stuff is actually real. And it's so much scarier than some fear toxins since it's based in reality. Like stuff like this, like all this gaslighting stuff does happen to people from time to time. Harvey thinks this is all circumstantial evidence at best, but Bruce has info on Harvey too, knowing the scholarship that put him through law school is called the M. Maurice Award, which is an anagram for Marcel Marceau, another famous clown and one of Jack's identities. Bruce explains that the Scarecrow is a master and he's pulling all the strings here, with people thinking he's got some team digging up information for him, but Bruce knows that he plans for decades, finding evidence that the Straw Man laced Gotham's water supply years ago, and his crow spread his influence, pointing clues he dug up on his board. Waylon rightfully thinks that Bruce sounds insane, wanting to tear down the wall, but Bruce is adamant that there are patterns there. He shows the group a map of the Gotham Zoo, showing them that if he draws a line from the Bat House to where Waylon was when Joe Chill attacked, he crosses the crocodile pit. And the same goes for Oswald, as his line draws across the penguin enclosure, and Eddie's line connects to the monkeys, the smartest animals in the zoo. Bruce points out Harvey's line took him a while to understand, but it connected to the petting zoo, where they kept rams, which are the sacrificial favorite of Janus, the god of duality. Man, Bruce is just pulling a Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia here. He's just rambling about his conspiracy board as it all just connects in some way, seeing things that aren't aren't there. But as I said before, that's the thing, kind of are there, that they're definitely there. And I like that it's got him believing that they're there, but then they're also not there, and it's just making him even more and more crazy. A villain getting under Batman's skin doesn't always happen, but man, when it does, and when it's written by a great writer like Scott Snyder, it's fucking fantastic. Harvey thinks that Bruce is too far gone, and they try and convince him that this isn't some puzzle he has to solve, but Bruce won't listen, telling his friends that they have all been compromised and he cannot trust them, which hurts Waylon greatly since they have been through so much together, and he defended Bruce against the others when they wanted to turn on him. He tries to tell Bruce that they are brothers and they came to help him, and they are not his enemy, as Alfred soon arrives with Martha in tow, but Bruce accuses Alfred of spying on him. Martha tries to calm Bruce, revealing that she was trying to help him in her own way, and now she's there, she can tell him what is true and what isn't, knowing Bruce's life is his own and his father is dead. Bruce refuses to listen, as every lead he has points back to her and her time with the Court of Owls. Martha admits that she was part of the Owls, and she will tell Bruce everything he wants to know, but not until he snaps out of this. Okay, so Martha appearing here really seals the deal that this is something the Straw Man is cooking up. This is some sort of illusion, or this is like all in Bruce's head, and he's having a conversation with himself, and that his mind is taking on the form of all his friends and family. He's having one of those hypothetical arguments with himself, and it's just adding to his paranoia. Nick Dragotta's art in this section kind of visually tells that too, where everything is done in this kind of black void. It's kind of Bruce's mind, and there's nothing in there except the conspiracy board and his friends taking up every bit of his head. Bruce also being kept with his back to everyone, us included, and staying in shadow is very telling too. He's lost himself, doesn't know who he is anymore. We don't know who the face is of Bruce anymore. It's all in shadow. He doesn't know who he is. And it's such a fantastic choice to do the sequence like that. Bruce puts on his cowl, telling his mother that he wants to know everything about the Owls, but Martha refuses, causing Bruce to fly into a blind rage, smashing up the wall next to Martha and demanding the information. His friends try and restrain him as Alfred shoots him in the chest, telling him to stay down. Batman manages to escape out of the bunker, and Waylon tells Alfred to let him go. So this was definitely all inside Bruce's head, as if you look at the background here of the conspiracy board he was working on, it takes the shape of the Straw Man's face, meaning he was definitely there in the room making things happen between Bruce and his own mind and making him believe all of this stuff. In the past, Bruce is given a new job by Falcone, told to visit a guy who screwed over everyone in his life, wanting his Batman to make sure the man understands what he did was wrong. Falcone tells Bruce that once he does this, he'll graduate from the Bat and move up the ranks a little, including a new apartment. Grabbing the Bat, Bruce finds a note from his mother, reminding him to be more than what he is now. He crumples the note up and puts it in his pocket as he leaves to deal with Falcone's problem. In the present, Jason continues to patrol the streets for Batman, responding to reports of someone dressed as Batman dragging an axe around. However, he found no evidence. Suddenly though, Batman appears in front of him and Jason confronts him, demanding the vigilante freeze. Batman tells him that he's not there to fight, dropping the axe, but Jason doesn't take the chance, hitting Bruce with a bowler which wraps around him and subdues the hero. Jason is so happy to finally have captured Batman, leaving the suit's cockpit and introducing himself to Batman, telling him he came from nothing, but he's the guy who saved Gotham. I really do want to know a little bit more about this Jason and why he's so hell-bent on stopping Batman, since there has to be something there. Like, he thinks Batman has done something to him or wronged him in some way. Maybe Jack lied to him and made him believe Batman is the reason he's an orphan or his life is nothing, like convinced him that Batman is the sole reason everything in his life has gone to shit. Tim soon arrives, surprising Jason, but the boy reminds him that they are a team and they meant to stick together. He is impressed that Jason managed to capture the Batman, and Jason wants Tim to come up to the robot and celebrate with him. But before he climbs the robot, he tells Batman not to get any ideas as a crow flies by, making Batman realize that the Straw Man is there too. He tries to warn the Robins, but they are too busy celebrating their victory as more crows begin to appear. Bruce screams to Jason and Tim that it's not safe for them as Clayface appears on the robot, beginning to form into Batman. Jason and Tim are too busy calling Dick and the others and gloating to notice Clayface taking on his form, readying to attack. They notice too late as the Clay Bat leaps at them, engulfing them in his body as he repeats everything Batman says back to the hero. A monstrous grin covers Clayface's face as he transforms his body, growing huge spikes which pierced him, killing him instantly. He tosses the boy's body hard onto the ground in front of Batman as Bruce frees himself from the bowler, confronting Clayface, who continues to mirror Batman and his words. Okay, so one of the Robins dying was something that was bound to happen. I knew that was going to be sort of an inciting incident in some form here, like one of them were going to get killed and that was going to probably radicalize the others against Batman, but I didn't expect it to happen here with Clayface. And in Clayface's big reveal, the Clayface we actually see here is quite scary. Him taking on the form of Batman and repeating his words back to his target is terrifying. And I love the design too. I talked about the design when we saw him at the end of the last issue, where I like how he has this form where it's just basically disembodied hands growing up out of like a puddle of clay, and the hands form the actual form of Clayface. They mold something out of clay. It's really terrifying. And the villain impersonating Batman is something I guess would be happening, and he's absolutely going to frame Batman for a load of killings and other horrible things too. I also believe him to be the one who was posing as Thomas Wayne. I don't think Thomas Wayne is still alive. I think it was Clayface who was posing as him to just get into Bruce's head a little bit more. Back in the past, Bruce meets with some of Falcone's men as they arrive at their target's apartment. Donning a ski mask, Bruce kicks the door in of the man's apartment, finding his old friend Matches Malone. Matches pleads for his life, wanting a chance to be better than this, knowing that whomever the masked bat-wielding guy is, he can do good too and be better. Bruce hesitates for a moment, but then raises the bat and brings it down hard on Match's head, remembering parts of his life and what his mother told him about being better than. In the present, Bruce battles Clayface, cutting the creature's head clean off, but it merely grabs the head and puts it back on its shoulders, continuing to mimic Bruce's movements and voice. Eventually, Clayface finishes with Bruce, slinking back down into a sewer grate as Batman demands it come back and face him. With the villain gone, Bruce tries to help Tim, finding that he is long dead. Strawman appears up on the Robin robot, finding it a shame that the boy had to die, but he guessed it was bound to happen sooner or later. He playfully waves goodbye to Bruce as he disappears, and Jason awakens, spotting Batman with Tim and believing that the Batman killed Tim. Bruce says that it wasn't him as the cops arrive, forcing him to flee as Jason screams that Batman will pay for this. So this is only going to radicalize Jason and probably the other Robins against Batman even more, which no doubt was the point of it. And like I said, Clayface is probably going to frame Bruce for a bunch of murders and pretend to be Bruce and maybe even Bruce's friends. I did think earlier on the people that Bruce was talking to in the bunker weren't actually his friends, they were actually Clayface, but I believe that was just an illusion by the Strawman. It wasn't actually Clayface, but I can definitely see Clayface doing that in the future and pretending to be someone Bruce loves or someone Bruce cares about just to get under his skin even more. In the past, Bruce stops beating Matches and the other goons demand he continue as per Falcone's orders, but if he won't, they will just shoot Matches and then Bruce. Bruce, however, turns on the goons, hitting them with his bat and telling Matches to run as the goon shoots Bruce in the shoulder. It doesn't stop Bruce from beating the man with the bat, and when he's done, the man tells Bruce that he's finished for what he has done. Bruce is way ahead of him, dropping the bloody bat, leaving. These flashbacks into Bruce's life has been so good, and is a great base for his Batman, getting to see all the points where Bruce rose up against, what he was facing. In this case, it was just thugs and criminals and crime bosses and stuff like that, and I like how it's contrasted with how he's acting in the present storyline, how he's kind of going through it again, but with like a new threat, something that's just so much bigger than just simple criminals and mob bosses, and he's got to try and overcome it. It's a lot harder, but he's getting there, and I'm so intrigued to see what they're going to do with this whole Clayface Strawman story, since it's just so full of paranoia, more so than what Bruce usually is, especially when fighting someone like Scarecrow. So I'm very intrigued to see where they're going to take it from here. Absolute Batman issue 23 was a brilliantly paced, paranoia-filled read that had me hooked from page 1, exploring Batman reaching that breaking point with all of what the Strawman has been doing to Bruce through the relationships he's cultivated over the last 23 issues, as well as the new villain Clayface is outstanding. The new take on Clayface is scary, it's really unsettling, and while we only got a taste of him here, can't wait to see the villain take on a bigger role in the coming issues. I'm going to give this issue a 10 out of 10.